America, land of the free, home of the brave, where all are accepted and come to have a happy and fruitful life. A place to raise a family. But there was a time when all were not considered equal. A time where one race was superior to another. Whites are better than blacks, a common notion since the beginning of this country, but by the 1950s was beginning to change. In the 1950s, blacks and whites were segregated, from public schools to fountains to even public bathrooms. This was a little odd, since by the 1950s, African Americans, by law, were considered equal. Since the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment required equal protection under the law, and the 15th Amendment gave blacks the rights to vote. By the 1950s, African Americans wanted to enact change, a way to push back against prejudice, and they did. A landmark in the demand for civil rights was the Brown v. Board education decision, which was issued on May 17, 1954. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that segregation of America's public schools was unconstitutional. Until the court's decision, many states across the nation had mandatory segregation laws, which required African Americans and Caucasian children to attend separate schools. There was so much backlash to the Supreme Court decision that the court had to issue a second decision on the rule. The second decision adopted a plan of gradual integration called the Blossom Plan. It called for desegregation to begin at the high school level in September of 1957, and eventually the lower grades would gradually be integrated over the next following 6 years. School district officials created a system in which black students interested in attending white-only schools were put through a series of rigorous interviews to determine whether they were suited for admission. Schools officials interviewed approximately 80 black students for Central High School, the largest school in the city. Only 9 were chosen: Melba Beals, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Gloria Carlmark, Carletta Lanier, Terrence Roberts, Jefferson Thomas, Minnie Jean Tickety, and Thelma Ware. These people would later become known as the Little Rock Nine. The Little Rock Nine was 9 black students enrolled at formerly all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, in September 1957. This was to follow by the 1954 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that declared segregation in public schools unconstitutional. The court had mandated that all public schools in the country be integrated with all deliberate speed in its decision. On September 4, 1957, the first day of classes of Central High, Governor Orville Faubus of Arkansas called in the State National Guard to deter black students from entering the school. On the morning of September 2, 1957, Governor Faubus ordered the Arkansas National Guard to prevent 9 African American students from entering Little Rock Central High School. For 3 weeks, the National Guard, under orders from the governor, prevented the 9 students from entering the school. President Eisenhower privately pressed Faubus to comply with the court order. When Faubus refused to comply, the president responded by federalizing the Arkansas National Guard and sending in 1,000 paratroopers from the Army's 101st Airborne Division to escort the students into the school. On September 23rd, Eisenhower sent in federal troops to escort the Little Rock Nine into school. They eventually started classes on September 25, 1957. Upon walking into the school on the 25th, an angry white mob hurled racial epithets at them. Inside the school, there were still separate restrooms and drinking fountains for blacks and white students. During the school year, the African American students were ostracized and physically harassed. They were shoved against lockers, tripped down stairways, and taunted by their classmates. Not all of the African American students were able to turn the other cheek. One of the Little Rock Nine, Minnie Jean Brown, was suspended in December for dropping chili on some boys after they refused to let her pass to her seat in the cafeteria. She was later expelled in February 1958 for calling a girl who had hit her with a purse white trash. The remaining 8 students completed the school year at Central. Senior Ernest Green was the first African American student to graduate from Central High School. The following year, the city's high schools were closed to prevent further desegregation, while the NAACP continued to pursue the legal case to integrate Little Rock's schools. When the schools reopened, Carletta Walls and Jefferson Thomas returned to Central and graduated in 1960. Thelma Mothershed received her diploma from Central High School by taking correspondence courses to complete her studies. After the students graduated from Little Rock, they decided to continue on their education. For example, Thelma Ware graduated from Southern Illinois University. Melba Beals earned her bachelor's degree from San Francisco State University. And Ernest Green graduated from Michigan State University, earning a bachelor's degree in 1962 and a master's degree in 1964 in sociology. Minnie Jean Brown attended Southern Illinois University, and Carletta Lanier attended Michigan State University for 2 years. The Little Rock Nine was fundamental in kickstarting the idea of education equality, the idea that all students deserve a quality and uniform education opportunity regardless of income, race, sexual orientation, background. Despite the fact America has come a long way in providing a good education for all, there are still a lot of differences in certain school districts. Statistic-wise, parents who are white and have a higher socioeconomic status in society will spend a lot more time on their kids' education than their minority counterparts. Whites are also more likely to send their kids to private schools, which have a lot more funding than public schools. Minority schools disproportionately make up the public schools populace. This proves race, directly or indirectly, does affect the type of education their kids will receive. We have made a lot of progress, but race still plays a factor. White parents that have a higher income are also able to afford test preps and private tutors in order to help their students receive a higher grades, which will ultimately get them into better and more prestigious colleges. Some examples are that in Texas, as of 2014-2015 study, a quarter of schools with the highest percentage of Black and Latino students did not offer Algebra 2. A third of these schools did not even offer chemistry. Black and student Latinos accounted for more than 40% of enrollment at schools with gifted programs, but only represented 26% of students in such programs. Despite these facts, people should strive for a more equal system today in order to eventually get to a system that offers equal opportunities for all. That is the only way we as Americans will truly be the land of the free and home of the brave.